The Selous Game Reserve is a nature reserve of the superlative. As well as being both the oldest and largest game reserve in Africa, it's a world of natural beauty and exotic wildlife. A steam engine that dates back to 1917 is a reminder of a bygone age when Tanzania was a German colony. The huge Selous Game Reserve was founded by the country's former German colonial rulers. Approaching from the southeast, entrance to the park is by way of the Mtemeri Gate. Strict security is vital here. Close to Mtemeri Gate is a tiny runway. Several small aircraft land here each day. Newly arrived passengers transfer to a jeep and then travel into the wild regions of the Selous Nature Reserve. This is the beginning of an unforgettable safari. The pilot of the twin-engined aircraft once again prepares for takeoff and to bring new passengers to this remarkable wilderness. Much of the game reserve is crossed by the Rufiji River and its tributaries. The Selous Camp is located on the banks of the Rufiji. Although this region has a relatively small amount of rainfall each year, the Rufiji River contains more water than most other rivers in East Africa. The river is important for the landscape of the Selous Game Reserve. It provides water for the region's plant and wildlife. The Rufiji is at the heart of this unique natural habitat. Prior to the establishment of the game reserve, this area was a paradise for hunters and poachers, as is evidenced by the many hunting trophies that are on show in the Mbega camp. The camp is situated close to the park entrance and on the banks of the Rufiji River. It has magnificent views of the surrounding landscape. The first day in the Selous Game Reserve comes to a relaxing and atmospheric conclusion. The setting sun creates impressive colors in the sky, and nature vanishes into the dark of night. The safari tours by jeep that travel across Selous set off in the early hours of the morning. We soon encounter some of Africa's fascinating wildlife. A number of giraffes tall as trees draw our attention. The adults can reach a height of up to 5.5 meters. Giraffes inhabit large areas of the reserve. There are more in Selous than almost anywhere else. And they're well protected here. There are also many African buffalo. The Rufiji River and the local terrain provide them with a good supply of drinking water and food. One of the most remarkable features of the Selous Game Reserve is its amazing variety of fauna and flora. The vegetation on the banks of the Rufiji and its many tributaries contains a huge variety of plant life. Around 3/4 of Selous is covered by dense miombo forests that have adapted to this region's long, dry periods. Not all of the 52,000 square kilometre game reserve is open to the public. Hunting is permitted in some areas of Selous, and it is strictly controlled. Safaris are available in the hunt-free areas north of Great Ruaha and Rufiji rivers. Next we come across a number of the river's most successful hunters. Crocodiles are often found in large numbers in various sections of the river. A baboon appears to be untroubled by the crocodiles. They're good runners and the crocodile doesn't usually attack them. The waters and swamplands of the northern part of Selous are home to a large number of hippopotamus, but it's best to be cautious. The baboon doesn't show any fear of the possible danger that is lurking in the water, but it hasn't gone unnoticed. The skeleton of a large animal highlights the fact that there are several dangerous predators in this area. Several vultures wait impatiently for the next chance to feed on a dead carcass. The vastness of the Selous Game Reserve is due to the fact that its natural terrain made it difficult for man to settle here. In addition to the wildlife, the local plants are also most fascinating. Here there's a large variety of vegetation. Around 1/4 of the reserve is covered by savanna. Specially equipped four-wheel drive vehicles are used for traveling across the savanna. Almost all of the Selous Game Reserve's camps offer various tours. Despite its size and beautiful landscape, compared to many other African nature parks, Selous is little known on the tourist trail. Because this nature reserve is extremely remote and difficult to reach, those who come here are able to admire its wildlife in a most natural way. This member of the so-called Big Five, the 5 most famous wild animals in Africa, looks somewhat sleepy. It's enjoying post-hunt doze. The young female lion ambles away slowly and gracefully. She doesn't appear to be fazed by our presence. Our jeep approaches these majestic creatures at close quarters. The last hunt of these huge cats must have been a success, as they don't seem to be hungry or aggressive. The sight of the young lions and the calm and friendly behavior of the other members of the group impresses the members of the safari. The lion population in the Selous Game Reserve is estimated to be between 3,000 to 4,000. Laying of a new gravel road in recent years has much improved mobility within the nature reserve. Thus, visitors are able to travel with relative ease from one place to another and to see a large assortment of wildlife. The Rufiji River attracts all of the park's animals. Giraffes, whose liquid intake is usually from the leaves they eat, also come here to drink. Giraffes live as solitary animals as well as in herds. The females sometimes form herds that contain up to 30 members. Each day, the adult giraffe requires about 30 kilograms of food. They seldom bow their heads, as this can leave them open to attack. However, giraffes are seldom attacked due to their size and their ability to defend themselves. Today, all is peaceful. The reason for the unspoiled nature here is not only the remote location of this nature reserve, but also the special makeup of its soil. The unfertile land and sparse rainfall make agriculture virtually impossible. And that's why no permanent human settlements have been established in this region. The absence of man proves to be fortunate for this natural paradise, as elsewhere Africa's fauna is threatened by extinction. It's not only the large variety of animals that's impressive, it's also the actual quantity of wildlife that's unique. The number of buffalo and gnu is estimated to be 160,000. The baboon is a common sight here. Baboons belong to the long-tailed monkey family that each day require a large amount of food. And they don't only eat plants. During long dry periods, many animals wander to the banks of the Rufiji River to drink. For those on safari, the river provides many opportunities to observe all kinds of animals, as all of the reservation's wildlife depends on water for survival. Sometimes the riverbanks are like a veritable Noah's Ark. A group of zebra wander from the riverbank to the savannah. Warthogs are at home in most regions south of the Sahara. They're less striking than the giraffe. We continue our journey by jeep through the public and hunt-free section of the Selous Game Reserve, past giant, majestic trees. The Rufiji River is always nearby. In the water, dead trees are a reminder of life's fragility, even in such a natural paradise. Along with the abundant vegetation, the meandering river offers many new impressions. The untouched, harmonious natural landscape is truly fascinating. The astonishing variety of fauna and flora and the outstanding landscape of this primeval world also provides an insight into the natural circle of life. The special significance of this protected area as a wildlife habitat becomes particularly apparent in the rainy season from November to May, when there is much nourishment to be found. Throughout the year, the surroundings of the Rufiji River are ideal for the observation of the region's wildlife. Around 40,000 hippopotamus populate the waters of the Selous Game Reserve, that is also a habitat for much bird life. More than 400 varieties have been counted here, including some rare species that are almost close to extinction. Thanks to the untouched landscape, this region is now a secure haven for many animals. A perfect habitat for massive populations of wildlife. A little distance from the densely vegetated riverbanks is a large area of bushland, plus a number of small forests. In addition to the omnipresent miombo trees, the northern section of Selous also features additional vegetation. As with most of the Game Reserve's camps, the Impala camp has a magnificent location directly on the banks of the Rufiji. The small number of tents, just 6, make the stay in the Impala camp a special existence. But this picturesque camp is not only a place in which to relax, it's also the starting point for many kinds of safari. The well-being of the Impala camp's guests is a top priority. Here, the wilderness is associated with a good degree of comfort. There's even a small swimming pool in which one can cool down after a hot and dusty safari, or simply relax during the early morning. The camp's furnishings are reminiscent of colonial times. A romantic atmosphere, yet in those days, life was a little more demanding. Attention to detail, good service, and a picturesque location make any stay in this camp a real delight. Could there be anything more pleasant than a cup of tea on the terrace with a view across the charming Selous landscape? The Impala camp was built only a few years ago. It blends well into the natural landscape. Both wilderness and camp unite in a natural way. No sounds of modern civilization disturb this idyll. It's paradise all the way. Here one can relax and recharge one's batteries for the next adventurous journey into the enchanting landscape of the Selous Game Reserve. The camp also offers various river safaris on the Rufiji. They add a different dimension to the land safaris. The camp's wonderful location is again apparent, because after just a few minutes, we're again surrounded by unspoiled nature. Everyone's excited. A sense of adventure is in the air. The vegetation on the riverbanks is becoming even more atmospheric. Ancient, gigantic trees emphasize still more the remoteness of this area that has never been inhabited by man. A boat trip is a good way to observe the bird life. The water birds to be found in Selous come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. Storks, herons, and pelicans find an abundant supply of food in the rivers and swamps of the reservation. Encounters with boats from other camps are few and far between. This region really is off the tourist map. The reason why another safari group is here soon becomes clear. An elephant has found a shady resting place close to the river. Because the river provides natural protection, even dangerous animals such as this huge male elephant can be observed at close quarters. The adult male African elephant can reach a body height of up to 4 meters and can weigh 7 tons. This male elephant appears to be contemplating crossing the Rufiji, but hasn't quite made up his mind. Seen from the water, the varied vegetation on the riverbanks is at its most splendid. The heart of the Selous, the 600-kilometer-long Rufiji River, originates at the junction of the Ulanga and Luego rivers. During the rainy season, particularly between March and May, the water level in the rivers rises and large parts of the plains become flooded. The origins of the Selous Game Reserve date back to German colonial times at the beginning of the 20th century. In 1905, the first game reserves were established here. Later, under British rule, they were united into a large protected area. The reserve derived its name from Frederick Courtenay Selous, an Englishman who popularized the safari in this region. Frederick Selous was also well known outside Africa. In 1909, he was given an important task. Selous was given the somewhat daunting job of guiding American President Theodore Roosevelt through the East African wilderness. It was one of the biggest safaris in history, as Roosevelt's entourage consisted of more than 300. However, it was poachers who did most harm to the region's wildlife. Elephant and rhino were hunted without mercy. In the 1980s, illegal hunting reached its climax as the area became more accessible due to the building of better gravel roads. Fortunately, in recent years, the situation has seen much improvement, and now the wildlife is recovering well from the poaching that plagued it for years. As soon as we reach firm ground, we experience our next encounter with African wildlife. A large group of zebra is in search of new pasture. The further the distance from the Rufiji, the lonelier and wilder becomes the landscape in the north of Selous. Elephants cross our path. Their thirst drives these weighty creatures towards the river. Each day, an adult requires 100 liters of water. Amid the wilderness, we meet another safari. They're exploring the river area with an armed ranger. A safari by foot through the Selous Game Reserve is without doubt one of the most impressive and adventurous ways in which to experience Africa. But for longer distances, a jeep is the best means of transport. The wildlife is not at all bothered by the sight of these vehicles. Elephants have a very well-defined social relationship. This is particularly obvious when they're with their young. When they reach the river, they begin to drink. A marvelous sight. Close to the herd of elephant is the region's oldest tree. The local people call it the oldest tree in Africa. Due to their ability to store huge amounts of water, many of the up to 1,000-year-old baobab trees are a natural water source for wildlife. The vegetation of the savanna is full of variety. It contains around 2,000 different species. The regular layout of the trees is a typical feature of this landscape, as the high water consumption of the trees hinders the growth of new trees. Tiny groups of trees are a favorite resting place for lions. During the day, they sleep in the shadows of the huge trees. Lions are sociable creatures. A pack of lions consists mainly of females that are closely related to each other. Their hunting territory often comprises an area of up to several hundred square kilometers. Their territories are not only marked by droppings and urine. Their famous roar also emphasizes their claim for supremacy. The king of the animals doesn't like the heat of the day. Their active hunting time begins at nightfall. The territory of these lions is especially ideal. Each day, numerous herds pass here to drink at the river before returning to the savannah. The lion's prey is mainly young members of the herd or the injured and elderly. They don't dare to attack elephants. This one was most likely killed by a poacher. Close to the camp on the banks of the Rufiji, a boat waits patiently for its passengers. Here, the river divides into many tributaries. Close to the Mbiga camp, at the western entrance of the Selous Game Reserve, begins our second river safari. The destination of this safari is now the northern section of this large river that features swampland and a number of small lakes. our journey, we pass various hippopotamus that emerge from the water. These huge, unpredictable pachyderms are one of the biggest dangers in these waters. In Africa, more people are killed each year by hippos than by any other large animal such as lions or crocodiles. The Rufiji is the lifeline of the Selous. Its existence makes this fantastic variety of wild animals possible, in addition to the wonderful flora and fauna. Despite the hostile living conditions here, there are some small settlements on the edge of the game reserve, whose inhabitants earn a living from the growing tourist industry. By including the local people in the protection of both nature and wildlife, poaching has been reduced to a minimum. The village communities are permitted to shoot a limited number of animals, but they're not allowed to trade with what they kill. With the prohibition of the trading of meat and fur, the manual and technical skills of the local people have improved. So the villages that are located around the reserve profit indirectly from the measures that have been introduced to protect this unique animal and plant world. Meat is still the staple diet of the villagers, and today they hunt only to meet their own needs. Their activities don't threaten the population of the local wildlife. The Selous Game Reserve is also advantageous for many of those who don't live in this region. The income that is gained from commercial hunting in the southern part of Selous is invested in the building of various schools and hospitals. The south of Tanzania is underdeveloped. Such poor regions depend on financial and technical support from outside. The limited and highly exclusive hunting that is allowed in the south of Selous provides an important source of income for the entire country. The rich bushland and endless plains of the savannas in the north of the reserve are home to giraffe. Here there's plenty of room for these elegant animals, whose territory often covers 100 square kilometers. They have few territorial disputes. In smaller numbers and far less popular is the carrion-eating spotted hyena. Close to the pack of spotted hyena is a big African hornbill which catches our attention. Adult African hornbills can reach a length of more than 100 centimeters. Various indigenous birds travel across the land in pairs or small groups. Elephants, such as this male, are a common sight on safaris. Indeed, the Selous Game Reserve boasts the largest elephant population in the world. We continue our journey by jeep towards the 670-meter-high Biho Biho mountain. The Biho Biho Camp was named after the mountain. It's a new, exclusive lodge that is located some distance from the river in the Selous Highlands. The complex contains 12 stone-built bungalows and provides a large amount of privacy as well as a friendly atmosphere. The Biho Biho Camp is one of the reserve's most beautiful and expensive lodges. Its high tariff is not surprising when considering the luxurious appointment of this dreamlike safari camp. Close to the lodge is the final resting place of Frederick Selous, who died on the 4th of January in 1917 during a wartime battle with the Germans. The First World War even disturbed this remote region of East Africa. To commemorate his name, a few years after the death of this popular British hunter, the game reserve was duly named Selous. The exit of the park in the north of this unique reserve is the final location of a fascinating safari through one of the last untouched natural habitats in Africa. The Selous Game Reserve is rightly referred to as a nature reserve of the superlative. It's a world full of natural beauty whose spectacular originality has managed to survive right up to the present day.